Today, right now, we're going to be reacting to somebody else's video. This is Sarah's video. She runs the AcadIMAT YouTube channel. It has 6K subscribers. She made this video called Medicine in Italy, Advantages, Disadvantages, Costs, Languages, and Racism. And it has almost 18,000 views. Let's go check it out.
I think one of the clear advantages of studying medicine here in Italy is that it's incredibly cheap, it's incredibly affordable, and they are so generous with scholarships and bursaries and grants, and they do not discriminate whether you're an Italian student or an international student compared to a lot of places in Europe and actually, frankly, in the world.
I think that is true. I think her focus is public universities, which have their own advantages and disadvantages, which I tackle in this video. But she is right when she says that a lot of public universities just aren't really that expensive at all. I think it's around 4,000 euros a year maximum, and you get deductions based on income and family income and how much you can afford and stuff like that, which is really generous and really nice.
Second biggest reason to study here is the fact that the level of education is so high. Italy has the best universities in the world. The first ever anatomy book was written up in Bologna. Humanitas is now one of the cutting edge universities in the world.
Hey, that's us. Yeah, rankings. This video is a year old, but rankings recently came out and we're like third or second in Italy, which is crazy. A lot of research here, a lot of stuff. And the fact that Bologna is like number one just proves that it doesn't matter if you're going to a new university or an old university, that the quality of education that you're getting is going to be really good regardless.
For research, the level and quality of education in Italy is incredibly high, to the point that it's kind of annoying because compared to a lot of other universities, the amount of theoretical information you need to know to pass classes is overwhelming. I've talked to so many other medical students in other countries, and they are blown away by the level of detail that we need to know to just even pass exams. So
that is true. I've talked to a few students from other countries, and they're always like, I was talking to a third year in another country, and I knew a bit more anatomy than he did, even though he is a third year, simply because the amount of information that we need to know, as she's saying, is like astounding in terms of quantity.
The standard of teaching is incredibly high, which is kind of like a double-edged sword. It's an advantage because obviously you know that you are learning a lot of good information. It is a disadvantage though because it is an unnecessarily high amount of information and it is very overwhelming. But I would say that's the second reason.
Just to be clear though, standard of teaching is not the same as quality of teaching. Quality of teaching depends on which school you end up going to, how you study, how you learn. So you could go to the best university in Italy, but if the professors teach you in a way that is not suited for you, even if the quality is 10 out of 10, you won't learn. So quality of teaching is personal and really does depend, but the standards are really high.
The third reason why I think it's a massive advantage to study here is obviously it's an amazing country. Like, let's be honest, like Italy is always romanticized and there's always like pictures and it's always in movies as being this incredible country filled with cities full of culture and food and amazing, like museums and history, and it just is such an incredible experience studying and living here. Like, I'm not going to pretend to you, it's not like in the movies. It's not always roses and, drinking wine at the sunset with your friends. It's not like that at all. It is very difficult and tearful. I will say that I have cried a lot of times being here in Italy, but overall
Oh no, I hope it's like better now. But she's right. It's very romanticized, very nice. Only thing that I can complain about living in Italy, that I've heard like Italians, non-Italians, everybody complain about, is the bureaucracy here, which like takes ages. It's insane how much time like a simple like two-step process can take here in Italy. But apart from that, it is like an excellent country to live in.
The advantage is that it is such a beautiful and culturally rich and amazing country. Like all of it is very different than each other. So obviously it's very hard to compare two cities. But overall, I think Italy is very picturesque, and every city has something different to offer. As bad as it sounds, it just doesn't sound as nice to say that you're studying medicine in Italy compared to like I'm studying medicine in Bulgaria. I think that's a massive advantage. It's just the fact that Italy is such a rich and amazing country, culturally, historically, everything wise. I think it's amazing. And also, Italian is a really much nicer language to learn, I would imagine, than and easier than to say like Romanian or Bulgarian.
I think that's really true. Maybe I am a bit biased because I do speak Spanish, but if you speak French, English is helpful. Portuguese, Spanish, it's really really easy to understand Italian. I struggle a bit with speaking, but I can understand all of it after only like a year of living here and not really being fully immersed. If you go to universities more in the south of the country, where people might speak less English, you will pick up Italian way quicker and like be like fluent way faster, which is necessary. And I think she's gonna talk about that later. Um, yeah, and I think it's way easier to pick up Italian than Bulgarian or Czech or something like that. To be honest.
These are languages that I would really struggle with learning compared to Italian. So that was a little bit about the advantages, but I'm going to talk about the disadvantages. The first one is that it is very heavily theory based. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, even when universities say that they have practicals from first year, it is not like you imagine it is going to be. Italy in general has a very, very, very theory heavy system. You do not get a lot of practical activities. This is just something that you're going to have to.
Yeah, that's true. We had well, we haven't even been to the hospital yet in second year. I don't think we will. Last year we had a practical activity where we would use the stethoscope to auscultate each other in class, and that was like a 1 day thing. Everybody brought their stethoscopes. It was really cool. And then we also had another one where we drew blood from a fake arm, like a dummy arm that's meant to do that. Cool. You kind of feel like you are a doctor. Personally, I'm kind of glad they didn't like make us meet patients, because that means you need to learn Italian or speak Italian well enough to communicate with an Italian person that is also sick, and you need to like care for, which a lot of us would not be ready for with this international course. But it is one of the main disadvantages of Italy in general, that it's like I would say it's a lot of theory. I was gonna get a percentage. I don't know what the percentage would be, but it is like incredibly theory based.
Accept. There are, of course, like exceptions, like the fact that I know I can only talk for Sapienza, but I'm certain that this is true for all of the other universities, is that if you are more proactive about finding practical experience, you will get more practical experience. Like, you can go and volunteer in departments and shadow professors, and this is kind of sad because your practical experience is in a way your own responsibility.
That is true. I have a lot of classmates, some since first year, some now, that have emailed doctors and are like shadowing them or working with them in the hospital. Some others are working like as paramedics or like in ambulances, and I think that's really cool. But it all is out of their own volition.
There's like no standard across classrooms. Like, once you do the bare minimum, no one is going to make sure that like you are learning and going and doing more things. So this is, in my opinion, kind of a massive disadvantage, the fact that you are responsible for your own practical experience, and even when you go and volunteer, it is actually very, very limited. Like, I'm in fifth year, I still don't know how to take blood. Rosh who's another student that I interviewed from Milan, is a sixth year. He doesn't know how to take blood, and the practical experience is very limited. You obviously can up how much experience you get. I have a classmate who basically lives in the cardiology department. She does sutures all the time. She assists in operations, but she has had to be very, very proactive about it. So that is a very clear disadvantage that you need to accept when you're coming here. And I'm afraid to break it to you that like no school is particularly unique, that they start doing heavy intensive practicals from first year. You're just going to have to accept that you do clinical years, and then you will start you do preclinical years, and then you do some clinical years, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that is true. That is how it is. It's crazy to think that like they haven't done like drawing blood, for example, because we did that in first year. So I think there is a bit of it does depend on your uni, but generally speaking, she is right. It's very theory based. I just think you do have to be proactive and look for those, which can, I assume, be tiring, especially if you're juggling a million other things to do for medical school as well.
The other one is that Italian is a must. If you are even considering studying medicine in Italy, you 100% need to start learning Italian today. Like the second this video is over, open a new tab and go and look up Italian classes or download Duolingo and start learning Italian right now. It doesn't matter if you get in the AcadIMAT or you don't get in. Trust me, you will be kicking yourself if you do not start learning now. Learn as much as you can now because learning Italian is a must. You cannot survive without Italian. Not even in Rome, not even in Milan. I'm not even talking about like university and when you go to the hospital and start seeing patients. I am talking day-to-day life. I didn't learn Italian before.
Okay, I think I disagree a bit with that. At least here in Milan, going to the groceries, like going to the gym, talking to people do understand and will respond in English if you speak slowly and if you like signal to them that you don't know Italian. So you can't live day-to-day life without really knowing Italian. However, it is a must, I think, when it comes to the hospital for you to like take advantage of all the experiences and like all the doctors and all the patients that you will encounter. If you don't speak Italian, you're going to be missing, I would say, at least 50% of all the knowledge that you could retain, even if it isn't directly being taught to you. Just like by observing and listening and hearing interactions, you learn so much. But if you don't understand what is being said, obviously you don't have access to any of that, which is a must, which is why I think you must learn Italian. Not so much because of the outside life, because I think at least here in the north you can manage, but definitely hospital-wise.
Before I got to Rome, I was like, okay, Rome is a super touristic city. It has millions of visitors a year. For sure, people will speak a basic level of English. I can just start lessons when I get there. You know, I'll learn some through immersion, and obviously I'm going to do Italian classes when I get there. It was not enough. Learn Italian before you get here. No one in okay, no, this sounds terrible. I'm sorry if you're Italian and you're watching this. English just doesn't really, no one really speaks English here. You will not be able to get by on English. You need to learn Italian. And this is like aside from patient interaction. I am just talking like day-to-day life. No one speaks a basic level of English. You really, really have to start learning Italian right now. I think it goes without say that you really should learn Italian anyway. Like I'm of the personal opinion that if you're moving to a city or a country for 6 years, you should make an effort to learn the local language. You are going to be talking to sick people. It should not be their responsibility to speak English to you. You should try to speak Italian with them. And
I think that's really important, and one of the main reasons you should speak Italian or learn Italian as soon as possible.
Finally, yes, the courses are in English, and you know, like the professors will translate for you, but this is a nuisance for them and for you because they are not going to translate every single word that the patient is saying, and you are going to suffer from this. No one is going to suffer but you from not understanding things, and your opportunities are going to be so limited. Like you won't be able to do as many extra shadowings whenever they're like giving out like rotations. You will always be limited by the fact that you don't speak Italian. So I would say like start learning Italian right now today. Even if you don't pass the AcadIMAT and you have to wait till the following year, trust me, you will not regret it. Like start right now, because you cannot live without Italian in this country. And the third one is, this is going to be really, really controversial, and I'm sure a lot of the Italians are going to protest, but Italy is kind of racist. It is very xenophobic. And I know Italians don't want to hear this, and they're going to say, oh, it depends on the city. Obviously not everyone is racist, but racism is systemic, and it is very, very, very prevalent. And it is very, very, very prevalent here in Italy. There have been multiple times where I have been so thankful that I am white. I don't want to turn this like political into like white privilege, but I can tell you right now that as a white woman, I have felt the effects of the racism and xenophobia in Italy. I have many a times been insulted for being a foreigner. I have been treated like crap in bureaucratic places because I'm a foreigner. People are very impatient when I am trying to speak Italian. I have really suffered as a foreigner here in Italy, and I have friends who are people of color who aren't white who have even struggled even more than me. So if you are a person of color, I think you have to be very aware. Like, I don't mean that it's racist in the sense that you're ever going to be in danger, but like when I walk into a store with one of my friends who is a person of color, the security guard will follow her around the supermarket. It's kind of like small things like this. And I know this is very political and controversial, but I feel like I owe it to you guys and the website and everyone who's watching this to give you a very, very, very honest point that if you are a foreigner, you will struggle here.
That's interesting. I don't, obviously, her experiences are valid and her own. However, I personally haven't experienced, I think, overt racism like she describes, which I'm very thankful and privileged for. I don't know if it's a geographical thing or simply because I haven't been out maybe as much as her, or I've only been here for like a year and a few months, and she's been here for like what 4 years, 4 years she said. Thankfully, I haven't been in a position where I have felt as being a victim of racism. I have felt, for example, that people get impatient when you speak in Italian to them and they respond in English. I personally haven't chalked that up to racism. It might be. I just think people want to make me feel comfortable, and they also feel like they don't have time to entertain my really bad Italian. It really sucks that this is like a, something she has felt, honestly. And I assume it is something you should consider before coming, as an extra precaution. But like personally, I and my friends, who some are people of color, some aren't, some speak Italian, some don't, personally can't say that we've experienced like overt or even like felt like we've experienced racism in Milan, at least.
Just the truth. I'm not saying Italians are evil. I'm not saying all Italians are racist. I'm just saying that compared to my home country, which is Ireland, I really, really feel the xenophobia and the racism here. So I'm going to end the political segment with that. Again, you're not going to be in any danger. You're not going to get hate crimed, but you will be discriminated against. And I think Rosh talks about it in our interview, where he has been in the hospital, he has been felt like he does not belong because he is also a person of color. So this is just something to consider. I'm sorry to be brutally honest. I'm sorry if I've offended any of the Italians, but again, I just really want to be as honest as possible. So given all that,
I think being that candid is actually not offensive. I think it's really good, and I think that if somebody has to say it, then it has to be said, and I think that's a really valuable takeaway from this video, that like it's something you should consider. She's definitely had more exposure to Italy in terms of like living in Italy and like being in the hospital than we have, so that might be one of the main reasons why she's been more exposed, and she's felt this more, which I think is completely valid. Yeah, I'm gonna keep watching.
do I still recommend Italy? Yes, 100%. There is not a single day that I regret my decision. Sometimes I question myself, being like, why am I in Italy when I'm really struggling? But the truth is, like, this is an amazing country. The people are amazing. Italians are so warm-blooded and welcoming once you get to know them. Once you can, speak a decent level of Italian, the level of education is so high. I still think the international communities are great. I think the international student communities and Erasmus students, everything all together is just really, really nice. I have, overall, I've been here for 5 years, and there has been a lot of difficulties, and there has been a lot of times where, like, I had a love-hate relationship with the city and the university and the country and the language, and the truth is that I do not regret any of it, and it is difficult, but in my opinion, it's really worth it. I would super recommend anyone to study medicine here in Italy. So I started with the advantages and disadvantages, if I would still recommend it, and now I'm going to go a bit more into why I would particularly recommend it and why I think you should actually study medicine here. First of all, it's much easier to get into. Like, I just feel like this band-aid has to be ripped off, and no one wants to admit that they want the easier path, but I personally found getting into studying medicine here so much easier compared to Ireland. The standard of entrance is so high in Ireland that you can be incredibly intelligent and hardworking and still not get in because of how limited it is. And I have talked to other people who are in the similar boat, where in their home country it was incredibly difficult to get in, and in Italy, luckily, they don't care about high school exams.
That's one of the biggest points, I think. The IMAT, I've heard, is challenging, but not ridiculously challenging like maybe the UKCAT has become, or the BMAT has become. So it is definitely easier to get into public universities. It is a bit harder for international students just because they don't give you that much time, and you have to do it, and then you're assigned a university, and then blah, like everything happens really quickly. For private universities, if you can't afford it, I think, for example, the HUMAT, which is what Humanitas does, which I have a few videos on, is way easier than the IMAT, and that's also what I've heard from a lot of my classmates. And a lot of students, what they do is they enroll in Humanitas, and then in September they take the IMAT and then transfer into this cheaper university that is public, but just by securing their place in a private university like Humanitas, and then if they don't get the IMAT year one, then they can just if they don't get the IMAT first try, they can just and if they don't get the IMAT like first try in year one, they can just transfer out of year one into year two, and I think that's also like really doable, and it's done frequently.
They don't care about your grades throughout high school. They literally just care about one 90-minute exam called the IMAT, and that is the only requirement. Like for
IMAT for them, HUMAT for Humanitas, and I think Universidad Católica, which is another private university, has their own admissions test. But that is true. No high school. Doesn't matter what subject you took. Doesn't matter what grades you got. Doesn't matter what high school you have, as long as it's like generally internationally recognized, like the IB, AP, stuff like that. And that's it, which is a huge advantage.
Example, for in Ireland, you have to do, I think in the end it works out to be like 30 hours of exams. Your grades matter. You have to sit additional exams that are only held once a year. Like, it is really brutal. A lot, and in my opinion, I would recommend it because almost everyone I have talked to has admitted the same thing, even though none of us want to talk about it or admit it, because it seems like we're taking the easier route. But the truth is that it is a lot easier to get into studying medicine here in Italy.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as we've seen that the standard of studying once you get in is really, really high. There's nothing wrong with it being easier to get in. If anything, it makes it harder to stay in after, and there's more merit to that.
So I would definitely recommend it. Like I mentioned, the tuition is incredibly cheap. Like if you go to a country like Romania or Bulgaria, the entrance exams are a lot easier because it's more based on paying. I have heard some terrible stories about corruption because it is actually profit-based. Here in Italy, it is completely merit-based. It is basically non-profit. Like the maximum fees you pay, even if you're from an incredibly wealthy family, is only around 2,000, 3,000 euro a year for the public universities, and there are so many opportunities for grants and scholarships. Again, the standard of education is quite high, even though it's very like theory based. The amount of knowledge you will be given is very, very high. The quality is very high, especially depending on the university you go to. You might have a lot of opportunities for research. The advantage of studying medicine in English within Italy, even for Italian students, is the fact that most professors that are able to speak English teach the English course. But the reason why they're able to speak English is because they have incredible international experience. So even the professors of the English courses tend to be the best professors that the university has to offer. So I think this is another like massive advantage.
That is really true. We're doing inflammation now, and one of our teachers is a doctor called whose last name is Mantovani, who's published, I think he's the most cited Italian doctor, which is crazy. And he's just teaching second years about inflammation, and we get to ask him questions, and we have him for ourselves for 2 hours, which is like mind blowing. And he's just like one of the best doctors, scientists in Italy.
And finally, again, like I think it's just such a flex to be able to say you live in Italy. Like I know every time I visit my home country of Ireland or Turkey, whenever I say like, oh, I study medicine in Italy, everyone is always impressed because Italy just sounds like such a pleasant and picturesque country. And again, like I'm all about just being completely honest. I'm not going to lie to you about anything. Transparency wise, like I just really love that it's a flex to say that you speak Italian and you say that you live in Italy, and you know, you become like so enriched with the food and the culture and the language. And yeah, my name is Sarah, by the way, but yeah, so I guess I'll see you guys in another video.
So that's a really good video by Serra. I'll put the link in the description. That's basically it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.